Chardon, hey, true crime fans. Welcome back to another episode of Chardon, hey, true crime. I'm your host, Dakota. With me, as always, is the lovely Kate.
That's me.
That is her. And tonight, we are going to be discussing the one, the only Ted Bundy.
Oh, boy.
Or what some women like to refer to as the hot serial killer. Why? I don't know. Because I mean, listen, I have a picture of this guy right here. So, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. So I have a picture of this guy right here. So let's go ahead and pull up this picture of Ted Bundy because whoops, wrong picture.
Well, I didn't see it, so we're good.
Sorry, he wasn't hot, so it's okay.
He just looked like a dude. Like, there was nothing.
Look at this guy. Look at that guy. People are like, oh my God, he's so hot. No.
And yeah, we're just here like,
Bitch, where?
Bitch, where?
Bitch, where?
You literally took the words right out of my mouth.
Like, honestly, where though? I don't see it. Like, he's
Oh, I actually forgot how glasses are. Oh, that's nice.
What about your glasses?
I forgot how comfortable they are and like how like it's such a little thing, but it makes such a difference.
Yeah, right. Seriously, I get that. I really do. So yeah. So this is the hot serial killer, I guess. Why they had Zac Efron play him in that movie, Terribly Vile, Wicked, whatever, Fantastic Beasts, I don't know. What?
So close. You were so close.
Right? Right. I mean, well, you know, the thing that Ted Bundy and J.K. Rowling have in common is that they're both transphobic, so.
Yeah.
Just saying.
They both just seem to hate women.
Yeah, that's true. J.K. Rowling has a lot more in common with serial killers than I ever really would have thought, because they both hate women.
What was I looking for? I don't remember, so it couldn't have been important.
Nope. Let's keep going with Ted Bundy then.
Alrighty.
Or start going with Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is a serial killer who he is believed to have killed up to 35 women, I believe. His name was Theodore Robert Bundy. He was an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murdered numerous young women during the 1970s and possibly earlier. After more than a decade of denials before his execution in 1989, he confessed to 30 homicides that he committed in 7 states between 1974 and 1978. The true number of victims is unknown and possibly higher. Bundy was regarded as handsome and charismatic, traits that he exploited to win the trust of victims and society. He would typically approach his victims in public places, feigning injury or disability or impersonating an authority figure, which, who does that remind us of? Gacy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Pretending to be a cop. Yeah.
It's like, I know these, but I can never remember them. Just like, I know we talked about someone who did that, but I don't know who it was.
Gacy.
Right. Gacy.
Anyway, Gacy. So, he would knock them unconscious and then take them to secluded locations to rape and strangle them. He sometimes revisited his secondary crime scenes, grooming and performing sexual acts with the decomposing corpses until putrefaction and destruction by wild animals made any further interactions impossible. Gross. He decapitated at least 12 victims and kept most of the severed heads as mementos in his apartment. Like Dahmer.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that's pretty Dahmery of him.
Yeah, right? On a few occasions, he broke into dwellings at night and bludgeoned his victims as they slept. In 1975, he was jailed for the first time when he was incarcerated in Utah for aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault. He then became a suspect in a progressively longer list of unsolved homicides in several states. Facing murder charges in Colorado, he he engineered true dramatic escapes and committed further assaults in Florida, including 3 murders before his ultimate recapture in 1978. For the Florida homicides, he received 3 death sentences in 2 trials, and he was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison in Rayford, Florida on January 24th, 1989.
Tragic.
His
What a shame.
Mm-hmm. What was that?
Oh, I'm just being sarcastic. Just tragic. What a shame. Maybe he could have been reformed, but now we'll never know.
His biographer, Anne Rule, who had previously worked with Bundy, described him as a sadistic sociopath who took pleasure from another human's pain and the control he had over his victims to the point of death and even after. He once called himself the most cold-hearted son of a bitch you'll ever meet. And attorney Polly Nelson, a member of his last defense team, wrote that Bundy was the very definition of a heartless evil. But he didn't start out that way. None of them start out that way.
See, I will say this, like, anybody who, like, has to specifically say, like, I am insert description here, probably is not actually that, but, like, in
probably
his
not,
case,
no.
Like, you know, people who say, like, I'm so nice. Like, oh my God, I'm so weird. I'm so quirky. Like, I'm the meanest son of a bitch. It's like, you're probably just a little bitch. But, for him, maybe. But, you know, we'll find out. I guess we'll find out as we read further.
We will find out, and we will find out together. So let's get going with Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was born Theodore Robert Cowell on November 24th, 1946, to Eleanor Louise Cowell, known as Louise, at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont. She was just 23 years old. But it's the 40s. So, you know, if you're unwed and you're having a baby, you go to an unwed mother's home.
Gasp. So he was a bastard.
He was literally a bastard from the beginning. His father's identity has never been confirmed, though his birth certificate is said to assign paternity to a salesman and Air Force veteran named Lloyd Marshall, though other accounts state his father is listed as unknown. Louise claimed that she had been seduced by an old money war veteran named Jack Worthington. And King County Sheriff's Office has him listed as the father in their files. But I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, do you think that she was just like, he was a rich guy who was a veteran of the war? Yeah. Came from like old money.
And they're just kind of like, well, I guess that checks out. All right, we'll just mark that down in there.
Yeah, his name was Jack.
Did Jack have a last name by chance?
Oh yeah, it was like one of those super rich sounding last names. Jack Worthington son.
Lee.
Yeah. Jack Worthington son Lee.
Just like everything that makes a name sound bougie.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying so hard to make the name sound like super bougie.
Yeah.
But some family members have expressed concern and suspicions that Bundy might have been fathered by Louise's own violent, abusive father, Samuel Cowell.
Ew.
But no material evidence has ever been cited to support this, and she's never said that was the deal. So who knows? But for the first 3 years,
pictures to compare.
Samuel Cowell. Let me look.
If there's a family resemblance, then maybe we could.
I mean, but at the same time, it's like I look a lot like my grandfather, but I know that that's not the case.
Yeah, that's true. I've got a cousin who's a carbon copy of his dad, who's a carbon copy of our grandpa. So, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. All right, let's see. Actually, we do have a picture of Sam, but it is a very old. Oh no, wait. This is his. This isn't Sam. This is his stepdad. This is Ted Bundy and his stepdad. I'll still open this picture though, so that we can show that one in a bit. I typed in Samuel Cowell, and all that's coming up is Simon Cowell.
Ah.
I know, it's really annoying. I'm like, I'm not looking for Simon. I'm looking for Samuel.
Wrong
Stupid.
bastard.
Seriously. I think this might still be his stepdad in this picture too, but this is actually a much better picture. So I'm going to keep that one open as well. Anyways, so.
Ow.
You good?
Yeah, I just closed my chapstick on my finger.
Yeah, so like I look a lot like my grandpa, but then my biological dad says that I look exactly like his mother. So, that happens. So that's not really a thing, honestly. So anyways, for the first 3 years of his life, Bundy lived in the Philadelphia home of his maternal grandparents, Samuel and Eleanor Cowell, who raised him as their son to avoid the social stigma that accompanied birth outside the wedlock. Friends and family, and even young Ted, were told that his grandparents were his parents and that his mother was his older sister. However, he eventually discovered the truth, though he has varied recollections of the circumstances. And even at age 3, there were signs that Ted Bundy was not as well adjusted as one would have hoped. His teenage aunt recalled waking up from a nap one day to find Ted had taken all of the knives from the kitchen and brought them to her room, arranging them on the bed around her so the blades were pointing at her while she slept, and Ted stood over her, watching until she woke up.
Huh.
Me just, okay, Damien.
I don't get that.
The Omen, the kid in The Omen. He was like a child, but also the Antichrist.
Oh. That's a little terrifying. I mean, kids can be fucking scary anyway, but that is very specifically like that terrifying. Would be terrifying if anybody did that.
Yeah.
That's just I think that's what we call a bad time.
That is a yikey child.
Indeed.
Yikey child. So, like I said, he was not a well child, and he was pissed off when he discovered the actual circumstances of his birth. He told a girlfriend that a cousin showed him a copy of his birth certificate after calling him a bastard. But he told biographers Stephen Mouchard and Hugh Ainsworth that he found the certificate himself. And another biographer and true crime writer, Anne Rule, who we talked about, who knew Bundy personally, believed that he didn't find out until 1969 when he located his original birth record in Vermont. Bundy expressed a lifelong resentment towards his mother for never talking to him about his real father and for leaving him to discover his true parentage for himself. In some interviews, Bundy spoke warmly of his grandparents and told Rule that he identified, respected, and clung to his grandfather. In 1987, he and other family members told attorneys that Samuel Cowell was a tyrannical bully and a bigot who hated Blacks, Italians, Catholics, and Jews, who beat his wife and the family dog and swung neighborhood cats by their tails.
My God.
I know. He once threw Louise's younger sister, Julia, Ted's teenage aunt, down a flight of stairs for oversleeping and was sometimes spoke aloud to unseen presences and at least once flew into a violent rage when the question of Bundy's paternity was raised. Bundy described his grandmother as a timid and obedient woman who periodically underwent electroconvulsive therapy for depression and feared to leave their house toward the end of her life. Bundy occasionally exhibited, sorry, I already said this part right here. I put that in twice. But in 1950, Louise changed her surname from Cowell to Nelson, and at the urging of multiple family members, she left Philadelphia with her son to live with her cousins Alan and Jane Scott in Tacoma, Washington. In 1950, and so when she lived with the cousins, she was also living with the cousin's father, who was a teacher. He was a musician, and he taught like orchestra at the college in Washington. And Ted Bundy was obsessed with his great uncle. He was like so into that guy, and he was like this, renowned musician who like had money, and he had like a good, job, and he was of importance, and Bundy was obsessed with that. So that's just something I need to point out right now. But in 1951, Louise met Johnny Culpepper Bundy, a hospital cook, at an adult singles night in Tacoma's First Methodist Church. They married later that year, and Johnny Bundy formally adopted Ted. Johnny and Louise conceived 4 children of their own, and although Johnny tried to include his adoptive son in camping trips and other family activities, Ted remained distant. He later complained to his girlfriend that Johnny wasn't his real father. He wasn't very bright and didn't make much money. So,
okay. So he's got like a superiority type thing going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He always did and always would. And Ted's really obsessed with the idea of like being important. Like he really wants to be an important person. He really wants to be this like he's obsessed with the idea of like himself becoming like super important. You know what I mean?
Notoriety. He wants notoriety.
Absolutely. Absolutely he does. But Bundy had different recollections of Tacoma when he spoke to his biographers. While he talked to Michaud and Ainsworth, he described how he roamed the neighborhoods, picking through trash barrels in search of pictures of naked women. When he spoke to Polly Nelson, he explained how he perused detective magazines, crime novels, and true crime documentaries for stories that involved sexual violence, particularly when the stories were illustrated with pictures of dead or maimed bodies. And in a letter to Rule, he asserted that he never, ever read fact detective magazines and shuddered at the thought that anyone would. In conversations with Michaud, he described how he would consume large quantities of alcohol and canvass the community late at night in search of undraped windows, where he could observe women undressing or whatever could be seen. Bundy also varied the accounts of his social life. He told Michaud and Ainsworth that he chose to be alone as an adolescent because he was unable to understand interpersonal relationships. He claimed that he had no natural sense of how to develop friendships. I didn't know what made people want to be friends, he said. I didn't know what underlays social interactions. Classmates from Woodrow Wilson High School told Rule, however, that Bundy was well known and well liked there, a medium-sized fish in a large pond. So he's just a liar. Like, he's just like going around being like, I'm like so sad. Look at me. Sad.
Yeah, he can't keep his own story straight, and it's just like I can't help but wonder like if he's like a compulsive liar or if he just like I don't even know what else it would be, like if he's like just a fucking shithead.
I mean, I generally tend to believe that he's just a fucking shithead, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Like I'm definitely sure he is just a shithead.
Yeah. But downhill skiing was Bundy's only significant athletic avocation. He enthusiastically pursued the activity by using stolen equipment and forged lift tickets. Because it was something that the rich kids did, and he wanted to be considered among the elite.
Yeah, that's a good point.
During high school, he was arrested at least twice on suspicion of burglary and auto theft. And when he reached the age 18, the details of the incidents were expunged. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Were expunged from his record, which is customary in Washington. And by that point, Ted might have even have been a killer, though it's not known for sure. But when Ted was 14, an 18-year-old girl from a nearby neighborhood went missing. On the evening of August 30th, 1961, Anne Marie Burr and her 3 siblings were sent to bed around 8 p.m. by their parents, Donald and Beverly, at their home in the North End section of Tacoma, Washington. Earlier that night, Burr had eaten dinner with at the nearby home of a friend. Burr and her sister Mary, aged 3, shared an upstairs bedroom, while her brother Gregory and sister Julie shared a bedroom in the basement. And at some point during the evening, several members of the house reported hearing their pet Cocker Spaniel barking. In the early mornings of August 31st, Anne Marie woke her parents in their first floor bedroom, complaining that Mary was crying. At the time, Mary was healing from a broken arm, which was in a cast. Their mother, Beverly, recalled soothing Mary before sending both girls back to bed, though she could not determine at the approximate time that happened. At approximately 5:30 a.m., Beverly realized that Anne Marie was missing when they found Mary, who was crying again, alone in the bedroom. The front door of the home, which had been locked, was slightly ajar, and a small window in the living room was open. Glass from the front lawn was found inside the house. An overturned bench was discovered against the side of the home. Upon searching the home, law enforcement noticed a table of figurines beside the open living room window was undisturbed, despite the appearance that someone had entered the home that way. And a faint footprint was found near the overturned bench outside. Law enforcement officials estimated the shoe print was made likely by a kid sneaker size 6 or 7. None of Burr's clothing or other personal items were missing from the home, and it was determined that she had left the residence wearing only her blue nightgown and a chain necklace with an engraved medal of Jesus and the Virgin Mary, an identification tag, and a medal of St. Christopher. On the morning she was reported missing, 100 soldiers from Fort Lewis, as well as 50 National Guardsmen from Camp Murray, aided local police in the search for the child. By 11 p.m., over 75 square blocks surrounding the Burrs' residence had been searched, including wooded areas, but no sign of her was found. Additionally, dive teams searched Commencement Bay for sign of her, but found nothing. And due to the lack of concrete evidence indicating an abduction had occurred, the FBI only assisted on the case on a standby basis. A report submitted in the days following the disappearance came from the neighbors who heard screaming emanating from a vehicle with California license plates on the morning that Burr went missing. However, when the driver of this vehicle was located, they explained that the noise had merely emanated from the radio and was mistaken for screaming. On September 8, 1961, Donald and Beverly voluntarily took polygraph examinations in response to rumors that they had withheld information in their daughter's disappearance. Both were found to be truthful in their responses, and the following day, the maternal grandmother, Mrs. Roy Leach, posted a $1,000 reward for information leading to the discovery of her granddaughter. The reward was increased to $5,000 after allocation of additional funds. At the time of her disappearance, Bundy was working as a paperboy and delivered newspapers in the Burrs neighborhood, with his paper delivery route crossing nearby the Burr family home. He also had the great uncle, whom he often visited, who taught music at the University of Puget Sound, UPS, which was located several blocks from the family's home. Bundy would have crossed very near to the house where Burr disappeared, and he had to pass 6th Avenue and North Fife Street, where the office manager for the route was. Like we said, an unknown size 6 shoe imprint was found outside the window, consistent with a teenage perpetrator. When questioned in Burr's disappearance, Bundy told law enforcement that he wouldn't have hurt a little girl and denied involvement. And in 1987, Bundy confided to Keppel, another biographer, or a reporter, I think is Keppel, that there were some murders that he would never talk about because they were committed too close to home, too close to family, or involved victims who were very young. Burr's disappearance matched all three of those categories.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now, Burr's parents told the media at this time that they believed their daughter's body had been buried in excavation sites on the University of Puget Sound's campus where construction was underway in 1961. However, they claimed neither they nor their daughter knew Bundy. Beverly Burr stated that after 2 letters exchanges with Bundy while he was on death row, he avoided the real questions, talking instead about the Green River murders, because of course we have to bring up that fucking asshole during this episode.
Your favorite. It's our buddy.
Gary fucking Ridgway. Instead, Bundy talked about the Green River murders and world events. In one correspondence, Bundy insisted that in 1961 he was a normal 14-year-old boy. I did not wander the streets late at night. I did not steal cars. I had absolutely no desire to harm anyone. Donald Burr later told crime writer Ann Rule that he believed he saw Bundy in a ditch on the UPS campus the morning of Anne Marie's disappearance. Now, it seems a little convenient to me that the parents have claimed to not knowing Ted Bundy before the disappearance of their daughter, but then claim to have seen Ted Bundy the morning of the disappearance. And at that point that they would have seen Ted Bundy, weren't the police and 100 National Guard soldiers and 50 Air Force or something, weren't all those people looking for her? Don't you think they would have noticed some scrawny little 14-year-old carrying around a dead body? I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, what are the chances that you would have just happened to see this guy who you are thinking could have
who you now know is a serial killer and lived in your neighborhood? I think that this family had something very horrible happen to their daughter. I do. And I think that I think that Ted Bundy is a really easy person to blame this on at this point.
Yeah. And I mean,
even if he did do it, there's no way that they saw him the morning of the disappearance.
Yeah. The chances of that, that's just too convenient. That's too convenient. Yeah. I'm not trying to say that he didn't do it, because it is, given what he said, it is extremely possible that he did do it. But yeah, you don't need to go and say you saw him at the place you think that your daughter may have been buried. That's, you're giving too much. And if anything, if you do that, you're gonna hurt things here. So yeah, don't do that.
And they've taken cadaver dogs to the school since then, and they haven't hit on anything. They still claim that until their deaths, they claim that their daughter was buried there. They never hit on anything. So it's a sad situation, and I know that they're grasping at straws and just being well, I saw him that day, so it was definitely him, so you should try him for the murder and make him tell where the body is. But
stop. Just stop.
It's sad. It's just sad. But after graduating from high school in 1965, Bundy attended University of Puget Sound for 1 year before transferring to the University of Washington to study Chinese. In 1967, he became romantically involved in a UW classmate who is identified by several pseudonyms in Bundy biographies, most commonly Stephanie Brooks. In early 1968, he dropped out of college and worked at a series of minimum wage jobs. He also volunteered at the Seattle office of Nelson Rockefeller's presidential campaign and became Arthur Fletcher's driver and bodyguard during Fletcher's campaign for lieutenant governor of Washington state. I have to say, like, who better to have as a bodyguard than a serial killer?
I mean, I have mixed thoughts about it, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking because, like, can you imagine, like, you're just like, oh, that guy's like getting too close. He like keeps following me around. The bodyguard's just like, oh, okay, I got you. Fucking stabs him in the throat. Just like, I kind of then like make him back up a little. Well, he's backed up forever now.
Just yeah, he backed up all the way, and his soul backed up out of his body now. Like, he's gone. He's not going to bother you again.
He backed up into my knife
while walking forward.
Yeah, that's backing up forward.
He reverse backed up.
Yeah. It was opposite. It's opposite day, so he backed up into my knife.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And then he ran into my knife. 10 times.
In August, Bundy attended the 1968 Republican National Convention in Miami as Rockefeller delegate. Shortly thereafter, Brooks ended their relationship and returned to her family home in California, frustrated by what she described as Bundy's immaturity and lack of ambition. Psychiatrist Dorothy Lewis would later pinpoint this crisis as probably the pivotal time in his development. Devastated by Brooks's rejection, Bundy traveled to Colorado and then further east, visiting relatives in Arkansas and Philadelphia, and enrolling for one semester at Temple University. It was at this time in 1969, Rule believes, that Bundy visited the Office of Birth Records in Burlington and confirmed his true parentage. Bundy was back in Washington by the fall of 1969, where he met Elizabeth Colfer, though she's been called a few different things in different Bundy media. She's been known as Meg Anders, Beth Archer, or Liz Kendall. Because apparently they just really don't like using people's real names in this shit.
I mean, I can understand that, but at the same time, it's just like, but what are their names?
Mm-hmm. Give us the true name. But Elizabeth was a divorcee from Ogden, Utah, who worked as a secretary at the University of Washington School of Medicine. Their stormy relationship would continue well past his initial incarceration in Utah in 1976. In mid-1970, Bundy, now focused and goal-oriented, re-enrolled at UW, this time as a psychology major. He became an honor student and was regarded by his professors. He was well regarded by his professors. In 1971, he took a job at Seattle's Suicide Hotline Crisis Center, where he met and worked alongside Anne Rule, a former Seattle police officer. An aspiring crime writer, she would later write one of the definitive Bundy biographies, The Stranger Beside Me. Miss Rule saw nothing disturbing in Bundy's personality at the time and described him as kind, solicitous, and empathetic. And after graduating from UW in 1972, Bundy joined Governor Daniel J. Evans's re-election campaign, and posing as a college student, he shadowed Evans' opponent, former Governor Albert Rossellini, and recorded his stump speeches for analysis by Evans' team. Evans appointed Bundy to the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. After Evans was reelected, Bundy was hired as an assistant to Ross Davis, chairman of the Washington State Republican Party. Davis thought well of Bundy and described him as smart, aggressive, and a believer in the system. In early 1973, despite mediocre LSAT scores, Bundy was accepted to the law school of UPS and the University of Utah on the strength of letters of recommendation from Evans, Davis, and several UW psychology professors.
Oh boy.
I know, right? It's just
You don't have
honestly,
to. You don't have to actually do well. You just have to be well liked by your professors.
it's not what you know, it's who you know.
It really is. And like
100%.
there's sometimes where I'm just like, yeah, that's helpful. And then there's times where it's like, yeah, but it should matter what you actually know.
It should matter. It absolutely should matter. And yet, look at their cabinet. Like,
whew, I need a sip.
yeah. Yep. Anyways, so during a trip to California on Republican Party business in the summer of 1973, Bundy rekindled his relationship with Brooks. She marveled at his transformation into a serious, dedicated professional who was seemingly on the cusp of a legal and political career. He continued to date Culper as well. Neither woman was aware of the other's existence. And in the fall of 1973, Bundy okay, well, help me out with this one right there.
Matriculated.
Thank you.
I have absolutely no idea what that means, but I know how to say it.
Let's find out. Enrolled. It literally means enrolled.
Oh, God, okay. You fucking people and your thesauruses.
So anyways, Bundy enrolled at UPS Law School and continued courting Brooks, who flew to Seattle several times to stay with him. They discussed marriage, and at one point, he introduced her to Davis as his fiancé. Anyways, in January 1974, however, he broke off all contact. Her phone calls and letters went unreturned, and finally reaching him by phone a month later, Brooks demanded to know why Bundy had just like ended their relationship without explanation. And in a flat, calm tone, he replied, "Stephanie, I have no idea what you mean," and hung up.
Oh, cool. So on top of all of this, he's a gaslighter.
Honestly, I feel like this was his version of like revenge. I feel like he was just like, well, she broke up with me, so I'm going to get her interested in me. I'm going to like become serious. I'm going to look all cool. I'm going to be great. I'm going to like make her be like, oh yeah, I want me a piece of that Ted Bundy again. And then just when she's got interest and just when she's really into it, I'm going to just ghost her.
Yeah, she liked it. That is probably what happened. That was probably his whole intention.
Yeah. And he actually kind of confirms that himself. She never heard from him again, and he later explained, "I just wanted to prove to myself that I could have married her."
Damn.
So yeah. Brooks concluded, in retrospect, that he had deliberately planned the entire courtship and rejection in advance as vengeance for the breakup that she initiated in '68, which is literally what we just said. But by then, Bundy had begun skipping classes at law school, and by April, he had stopped attending entirely as young women began to disappear in the Pacific Northwest. There's no consensus on when.
You class when you're murdering people.
I guess not.
Just takes up so much of your time. It just packs your schedule.
And like murder is just like so much more creative than like sitting in class reading dusty old law books. However, if he'd actually paid attention in law school, maybe he would have done a better job at defending himself, because he did that later.
That's fucking ballsy.
I'm not even joking. This fucking idiot defended himself.
That's hilarious. Like, legitimately.
We're going to get into that in part. We're going to get into that in part 2, because I'm mad about it. I am big mad about it. But anyways, there's no consensus on where or when Bundy began killing women. He's told different stories to different people and refuses to divulge the specifics of his earliest crimes, even as he confessed in graphic detail to dozens of later murders in the days preceding his execution. He told Nelson he attempted his first kidnapping in 1969 in Ocean City, New Jersey, but did not kill anyone until sometime in 1971 in Seattle. Psychologist Art Norman that he killed 2 women in Atlantic City in 1969 while visiting family in Philadelphia. He hinted but refused to elaborate to homicide detective Robert D. Keppel that he committed a murder in Seattle in 1972 and another murder in 1973 that involved a hitchhiker near Tumwater. Rule and Keppel both believed that he might have started killing as a teenager. Circumstantial evidence suggests that he might have abducted and killed 8-year-old Anne-Marie Burr, but he denied that until his end. But his earliest documented homicides were committed in 1974 when he was 27 years old. By then, by his own admission, he had mastered the necessary skills in an era before DNA profiling to leave minimal incriminating forensic evidence at crime scenes. Shortly after midnight on January 4th, 1974, around the time that he terminated his relationship with Brooks, Bundy entered the basement apartment of 18-year-old Karen Sparks, who again has been identified by different names to different sources. She's been identified as Joni Lentz, Mary Adams, and Terry Caldwell by various sources. And again, this one is dead. Why are you giving her so many pseudonyms?
Yeah, right? Like for the murder victims, I feel like I feel like they deserve to have their actual names known.
Yeah, exactly. She was a dancer and a student at UW, and after bludgeoning Sparks senseless with a metal rod from her bed frame, he sexually assaulted her with it and caused extensive internal injuries.
Eesh.
Now, she actually remained unconscious for 10 days, but survived with permanent physical and mental disabilities. So maybe that's why they gave her a new name. I don't know, but I feel like with the victims, they deserve to be known. But in the early mornings of February 1st, Bundy broke into the basement room of Linda Ann Healy, a UW undergrad who was a broadcast morning radio weather reporter for skiers. He beat her unconscious, dressed her in blue jeans, a white blouse, and boots, and carried her away. That's it. During the first half
we
of
never saw her again.
Yeah. During the first half of 1974, female college students disappeared at the rate of about 1 a month. On March 12th, Donna Gail Manson, a 19-year-old student at the Evergreen State College in Olympia, 60 miles southwest of Seattle, left her dormitory to attend a jazz concert on campus, but never arrived. On April 17th, Susan Elaine Rancourt disappeared while on her way to her dorm after an evening advisors meeting in Central Washington State College in Ellensburg, 110 miles east-southeast of Seattle. 2 female Central Washington students later came forward to report encounters, one on the night of Rancourt's disappearance, one 3 nights earlier. They reported encounters with a man wearing an arm sling asking for help carrying a load of books into his brown or tan Volkswagen Beetle. On May 6th, Roberta Kathleen Parks left her dormitory at Oregon State University in Corvallis, 85 miles south of Portland, to have coffee with friends at the Memorial Union, but never arrived. Detectives from the King County and Seattle Police Departments grew increasingly concerned. There was no significant physical evidence, and the missing women had little in common apart from being young, attractive, white college students with long, dark hair parted down the middle. You know who else wore long, dark hair parted down the middle?
No.
Stephanie Brooks.
Oh.
Yep.
It was funny. I was just thinking, like, boy, I'm glad I parted my hair down the side tonight.
Right? I mean, but you don't really have dark hair right now anyway.
I do at the top here. When it's
At
parted
the top.
down the middle, it like really shows.
Yeah, at the top. But Bundy wouldn't be interested unless it was all dark.
Eh.
His ex didn't have pink hair.
What?
His ex didn't have pink hair.
Oh, yeah. True indeed.
So anyways, on June 1st, Brenda Carol Ball, 22, disappeared after leaving the Flame Tavern in Buren near Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. She was last seen in the parking lot talking to a brown-haired man with his arm in a sling. And that brings us to victim Georgianne Hawkins. In the early hours of June 11th, UW student Georgianne Hawkins vanished while walking down a brightly lit alleyway between her boyfriend's dormitory residence and her sorority house. The next morning, 3 Seattle homicide detectives and a criminalist combed the entire alleyway on their hands and knees, finding nothing. After her disappearance was publicized, witnesses came forward to report seeing a man in that alley that night. He was on crutches with a leg cast and was struggling to carry a briefcase. One woman recalled that the man had asked her to help him carry the case to his car, a light brown Volkswagen Beetle. Bundy later told Keppel that he lured Hawkins to his car before rendering her unconscious with a crowbar he had earlier placed beside the vehicle. He then handcuffed Hawkins and drove her to Issaquah, where he strangled her before spending the entire night with her body. Prior to her murder, Hawkins had regained consciousness inside the car and had began talking with Bundy, who recollected that she had informed him that she had a Spanish test the following day and that she thought I had taken her to help tutor her for her Spanish test, adding, "It's not funny, but it's odd the kind of things people will say under those circumstances." He admitted to revisiting Hawkins' corpse on 3 occasions.
Yes, let me just kidnap you so you can study for your Spanish test.
I think she was pretty out of it, like, poor girl. Poor girl.
That's true.
She's probably just like, oh, I want to go study for the Spanish test?
Yeah, she got whacked over the head with a crowbar. Yeah, it does make sense that she wouldn't have made sense.
No. And like, honestly, that's probably what she was thinking about before he knocked her out. Like, she's probably just like, oh God, I have to like study for the Spanish test after I help this like dude get his briefcase in his car, and then I have to like do this, that, or the other. And Bundy was just like, bam. She's just like, ah.
Oh God, my Spanish test.
Yeah, exactly. Huh, right, the Spanish test.
Just gets hits over the head. Ay, ay, ay!
That's so fucked up, Kate.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God, that is so funny. It's so fucked up, but like, I can't stop laughing at it.
It's just the idea of somebody saying that as they go down after getting hit with a crowbar.
Ay, caramba. All right. So anyway, he stated that he returned to the UW alleyway the morning after Hawkins' abduction and murder. And there, in the midst of a major crime scene investigation, he located and gathered Hawkins' earrings and one of her shoes where he had left them in the adjoining parking lot and departed unobserved. That's so fucked up. During this period, Bundy was working in Olympia as the assistant director of the Seattle Crime Preservation Advisory Commission, where he ironically wrote a pamphlet for women on rape prevention. Later, he worked at the Department of Emergency Services, DES, a state government agency involved in the search for the missing women. At DES, he met and dated Carol Ann Boone, a twice-divorced mother of two, who 6 years later would play an important role in the final phase of his life. A light tan, rusty Volkswagen is sorry. So he used the Volkswagen for the majority of his crimes, and he actually like learned how to take off the handles on the inside of the passenger door.
Well, that's handy if you don't want to let your passenger get out of the car.
Yep. And that's actually something that Gacy did as well. Gacy like removed the door handle from the inside.
Yeah, I thought that sounded familiar.
Mm-hmm.
It's all did.
These guys are all stealing fucking ideas from each other and shit, you know?
Ain't nobody original.
Nope. So pressure began to mount on law enforcement agencies, but a lack of physical evidence severely hampered them. Police could not provide reporters with the little information that was available for fear of compromising the investigation, and further similarities between the victims were noted. The disappearances all took place at night, usually near ongoing construction work within a week of midterm or final exams. All of the victims were wearing slacks or blue jeans, and at most crime scenes, there were sightings of a man wearing a cast or a sling and driving a brown or tan Volkswagen Beetle. Here's actually a kind of funny story. Anne Rule, who sat next to him at the suicide hotline, you know, she remembered like this story where she was like talking with him, and they like walked up to his car, and he had a tan Volkswagen Beetle, and she was like joking around, just being like, "Ooh, it was probably you, huh?" And he was just like, "Oh, haha, yeah, right, Anne."
Yankees.
Yeah. And she would just be like, "Ooh, be careful you don't get pulled over by the police." And he's just like, "Haha, yeah.
See, it's funny. See, it's funny.
Yep.
Even I know how this one turns out.
So the Pacific Northwest murders culminated on July 14th when the broad daylight abductions of two women from a crowded beach at Lake Sammamish. The fuck kind of names are they? Come on. Sammamish. Anyways, at Lake Sammamish State Park in Issaquah, a suburb 20 miles east of Seattle. 5 female witnesses described an attractive young man wearing a white tennis outfit with his left arm in a sling, speaking with a light accent, perhaps Canadian or British. He introduced himself as Ted and asked for their help in unloading a sailboat from his tan or bronze-colored Volkswagen Beetle. 4 refused, and 1 accompanied him as far as his car, saw that there was no sailboat, and left. 3 additional witnesses saw him approach Janice Ann Ott, 23, a probation caseworker at the King County Juvenile Court with a sailboat story, and watched her leave the beach in his company. About 4 hours later, Denise Marie Naslund, a 19-year-old woman who was studying to become a computer programmer, left a picnic to go to the restrooms and never returned. Bundy told Stephen Michaud and Michael Hagmeyer that Ott was still alive, but when he returned with Naslund, and he forced one to watch as he murdered the other, but he later denied it in an interview with Lewis on the eve of his execution.
What is the truth, Theodore?
So what his deal was, he would go to them and he'd be like, "Hey, can you like come help unload this thing from my boat?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, okay." And so they get to the car and they'd be like, "Where is it?" Or unload my boat from the car, and they'd be like, "Yeah, okay." And then they get there and they'd be like, "Where is it?" And he'd be like, "Oh, well, actually, we just have to like drive a couple blocks down and go get it over there and like load it and then unload it here." And like most people are like, but then 2 girls were actually like, "Yeah, okay, I could do that," because he was a hot guy with an accent and had his arm in a sling, and they were like, "Ooh, I could totally like fall in love for the summer and marry him or whatever." Bitch, nah.
Hot though. He wasn't even hot though.
Yeah, let us let us bring up another picture of Ted. Is it this one? Yeah, this one. This guy. He's not hot. He's just a weirdo.
He just looks like a little string bean.
He just looks like a dude.
There is nothing interesting about his look. He just looks like a dude. He would blend into the background of anywhere. There is nothing enticing about this look.
Nothing.
He's not
Nothing
even
at all.
serving us looks. He's not even fashionable. He's just in some short shorts and those fucking suspenders from that other picture. My God.
This one right here.
That one right there.
You mad about that picture, Kate?
I'm mad about that picture because there he is serving a look. It was off the menu and not requested.
All right, Kate. Just look at that face, okay? That's all I want you to look at right now. Just look at that face. All right? Are you looking?
Sadly.
Hey, lady, do you think you can come help me get my boot from my car?
Oh my God. Well, I'm turned on.
I don't know why you're laughing at me, madam. I need help getting my boot from my car.
What did they say? They said like maybe Canadian or British. Like, how do you confuse the two? Like, okay, how bad?
Right, hang on. I have an idea. Hey there. I need help getting my boot from my car.
Oh God, stop.
That's what Ted did.
Oh God.
Hello. I need help getting my boot from my car.
My brain is angry. I'm gonna have a fucking stroke. I shouldn't be joking about that right now, given my family circumstances,
no,
but still.
Right? Seriously. Seriously. Well, he didn't have a stroke, though. He just has fluid on his heart. He's fine.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Yeah, my dad's in the hospital right now. His heart's all fucked up. It's fine. We're fine.
It's fine. We're fine.
He's getting an MRI tomorrow. There's a lot going on.
Oh, let me know about his MRI tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so King County Police, finally armed with a detailed description of their suspect and his car, posted flyers throughout the Seattle area. A composite sketch was printed in regional newspapers and broadcast on local television, and Elizabeth Colfer, Ann Rule, and a DES employee and a UW psychology professor all recognized the profile, the sketch, and the car and reported Bundy as a possible suspect, but detectives who were receiving up to 200 tips per day thought it unlikely that a clean-cut law student with no adult criminal record could be the perpetrator. His fucking exes and his fucking like professors and like other people that worked with him and shit, they're all just like, hey yo, that sounds like Teddy.
And they were all just like, but does it though?
But like it looks like him though. Like look at the picture. Do you see that picture? Do you see it? You see?
I'm looking. I see the picture. I see his face. But is it though? Sure?
I mean, it could be.
Yeah, but does that sound like realistic to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, so I actually just found a picture of that just really quickly. Also, his name is fucking Ted. Like, he gave them his goddamn real name.
Yeah, what a dumbass. Who does that?
Okay, so that's the picture. That's the sketch of the guy. I know, right? I'm gonna just right there.
Did they hire a professional?
No. I'm gonna say no. Kate, are you looking at the picture? Are you looking at the sketch?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, could you possibly help me get my boat from my car?
Oh my God, stop. I'm gonna have an aneurysm. He looks like a beetle. He looks like the fifth beetle.
Oh, fuck, right, seriously. All right, we got two more paragraphs.
Sean, Paul, Ted, George, and Ringo.
Sean, Paul, Ted, George, Ringo, and also Bruce Lee.
Oh,
George Arthur Lee.
Oh, Bruce, George, Paul, Ted, Ringo,
Yep.
Peter Lee.
Yep. Featuring Cat Stevens.
What?
I said featuring Cat Stevens. He's a musician.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, so on September 6th, two grouse hunters stumbled across the skeletal remains of Ott and Nasland near a service road in Issaquah, 2 miles east of Lake Sammamish State Park. An extra femur and several vertebrae were found at the site that were later identified by Bundy as Georgianne Hawkins's. And 6 months later, forestry students from Green River Community College discovered the skulls and mandibles of Healy, Rancourt, Parks, and Ball on Taylor Mountain, where Bundy frequently hiked just east of Issaquah. Manson's remains were never recovered. And that is part 1 of Theodore Ted Bundy.
Oh, Teddy boy.
Teddy. Ted. Ted, I'm going to teach you how to live.
Murder a bunch of college students. That's how you do it.
Step 1, shave your beard. It doesn't look good with your suit.
I'm not wearing a suit.
Step 2, get a suit. Then you'll be able to attract women, and then you can kill them.
Tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
Suits are awesome.
Ted, my name is... What?
Suits are cool. Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Barney and Marshall are the best part of that show.
Ted, my name is Gary Ridgway, and I'm going to teach you how to live.
Did Gary Ridgway come first?
I don't fucking know. They were around the same time. All these morons were around the same time. I hate all of them. Yeah. Anyways, that is episode 1 of Ted Bundy. If you liked tonight's episode, feel free to drop us a couple bucks on our Venmos. Mine is at Dakota's Beard. Kate's is Kate Ulrich 42, or you can support the show at patreon.com/Dakota's Beard. Coming up on Patreon, Thea and I, our Sunday host, are going to be starting our series where we watch and review movies about true crime. Or movies that are inspired by true crime. So we're going to be doing that Zac Efron movie. We're going to do My Friend Dahmer. I kind of want to start off with us watching and reviewing the Ted Bundy tapes on Netflix and just sort of talking about that, because I know that the Ted Bundy tapes left out a lot of information. I also want to review that one movie that I got really, really mad about that time on the show.
The Iceman?
Yeah. The entire time I'm just going to be mad that it's not James Gandolfini.
Oh God, and wait until you see Chris Evans. It's so wild.
Who did Chris Evans play?
The guy who had the ice cream truck.
Jesus Christ. That he killed?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're gonna love it. It's great. It's so great.
I'm so mad. All right. Watch me get mad on Patreon at patreon.com/Dakota's Beard. And until Thursday, say goodnight, Kate.
Good night, Kate.
Good night, and
Good night, and don't trust guys with a tan Volkswagen Beetle.
yeah, or guys with just don't help people, basically.
Right? Seriously.
It's the number one. It's number one. Just don't do that. All right, guys. We'll see you Thursday night. Have a great evening.